World War I, also known as the Great War, was declared the war to end all wars. Beginning in 1914, Europe was divided into two rival alliances, the Triple Entente, Great Britain, France, and Russia, and the Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. When Austria-Hungary declared war against Serbia, it set off a chain reaction in the alliance system. As a result of the alliances, nearly all of Europe joined the Four-Year War that would prove to be one of the bloodiest and most destructive in human history.
World War I officially ended with the signing of the Treaty of Versailles on June 28, 1919. Negotiated among the Allied powers with little participation by Germany, the 15 parts and 440 articles reassigned German boundaries and assigned liability. The causes of World War II are rooted in the aftermath of World War I and the effects of the Treaty of Versailles. One of the many parts of the Treaty of Versailles was for Germany to accept responsibility for causing the Great War. This is now known as the War Guilt Clause, or Article 231 of the Treaty of Versailles.
Harsh restrictions on Germany fueled a state of frustration. Hitler was able to gain popularity by utilizing German discontent with the controversial Treaty of Versailles. World War II was in part a continuation of the power struggle, never fully resolved by World War I. It is common for Germans in the 1930s to justify acts of aggression due to perceived injustices imposed by the victors of World War I.
One of the darker outcomes of World War I was the tensions between countries. German citizens were outraged at the treaty and would harbor resentment for years. They were frustrated with their government. This proved to be a stepping stone for Hitler as he rose to power. World War I was the catalyst for World War II, the Holocaust, and all the other murderous events that would follow in the 20th century.
Political tensions ran high in early 20th century Europe. Abroad, Europe's great powers were increasingly coming to impasses over the acquisition of new colonies. As the unclaimed lands of the earth ran short, the race to claim them became fiercely competitive. At the same time, the Turkish-ruled Ottoman Empire, which had existed for hundreds of years, was slowly decaying. Greece, Bulgaria, Romania, Serbia, and other southern European nations that had been under Ottoman rule became independent, changing the balance of power in Europe. The many ethnic groups of Austria-Hungary, inspired by these new southern European nations, began to agitate for their own independence.
By war's end, the map of Europe began to resemble the one we know today. The German and Austro-Hungarian empires ceased to exist. Much of Eastern Europe, in particular, was divided along ethno-linguistic lines, and Hungary, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and Finland all became independent countries. Several other nations were awkwardly combined into the countries of Yugoslavia and Czechoslovakia. A major reorganization of the Near and Middle East also took place following the war, establishing the forerunners of the countries we know today as Armenia, Turkey, Syria, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, and Iraq.
Many changes were made across the world to multiple subjects, one of which is gender roles and expectations. In general, the expectation of women were to be involved into work rose. For example, with the absence of many male workers, now soldiers, multiple openings came up for many occupations. Some women gladly took the job, welcoming a new responsibility in their lives. There are about 80,000 women that served in the World War. This may seem insignificant compared to the millions of men involved in the war, but this was a huge stepping stone for women. It marked the first step for women involvement in the war.
The roles of women before the war were predominantly that of a matriarchal background. They were identified across the world as mothers that sometimes worked in an occupation involving textiles. Never before were women expected to work such harsh jobs related to the industry or military. However, their life before the war was peaceful. There wasn't much to worry about from their point of view before the war. They didn't have to worry about things such as money, taxes, expenses, and endangerment. Some may prefer the life before the war, but most women welcome the new responsibilities.
Almost all of women involved in the war volunteered to be there. They were involved in jobs such as nursing, knitting, cleaning, entertaining, and communicating. Most of these jobs may seem insignificant, but they actually saved multiple lives in the war. First of all, nursing is vital in the war. Tending to wounds that could develop into infections, supporting broken body parts, and dealing with mortal wounds are all necessary in war for soldiers and the entire military as a whole. Not to mention how all the other small tasks they did added up. Knitting clothes provided soldiers who lost their clothes a source of shelter and warmth. Cleaning was a great help to general sanitization, which prevents diseases and illnesses. Also, entertaining and communicating with the soldiers helped keep their spirits high during a depressing time such as the war. All in all, the war may have been detrimental to the lives of many, but improved a woman's social status and expectations.
After the Central Powers surrendered to the Allied powers, the countries that participated in World War I were suffering from the aftermath of the war. As the National Bureau of Economic Research has stated, the total cost of World War I to the United States was approximately $32 billion, or 52% of gross national product at the time. With the cost of World War I exponentially increasing, participating countries were choking from the ominous grip of recession.
The results of World War I left Britain with an immense burden of 1. Over 500,000 military deaths, 2. Destruction of 3.6% of Britain's human capital, 3. 10% of its domestic and 24% of its overseas assets, and 4. Spent well over 25% of its GDP on the war effort between 1915 and 1918. In addition, Britain was soon undermined by other countries, like the US and Japan, in other industries such as the textile one. This led Britain to suffer from a permanent loss of the world market share.
Despite World War I occurring more than a century ago, one can still see the lasting impact it has on our world today. Most notably, World War I has altered the political, social, and economical landscape of today. For example, World War I allowed the resentment from former nationalist colonies to persist and set the stage for World War II, new taxes and laws, and altered the gender expectations and roles. It is irrefutable that World War I is one of the most important events in modern world history.
Germany was economically devastated after a draining defeat in World War I due to the signing of the Versailles Treaty. The treaty forced Germany to pay reparations to France and Great Britain and give up 13% of its land. The municipal finance in Germany collapsed in 1930 due to rabid ordinary budgets. With the collapse, Germany printed excessive amounts of money that made its currency, the mark, worthless in time. General resentment with the economy set the stage for Hitler's rise to power. He blamed the wealthy Jewish businessmen on the disastrous economy and devised a plan for swift economic recovery.